So I want to go to a piece by Caitlin Johnstone because we have seen public sentiment turn against Israel in recent days here, accelerated, of course, in huge part by the WCK airstrike. And she put out a short little piece that's here read for us on this nice little video audio presentation that she posted on her X account. Basically, it's a version of what I tweeted out. No Israel amnesty. Don't let people forget about what they said during the first 6 months of this genocide. And don't let people pin this all on Netanyahu or blame it on a few bad apples. This is a great
Which
piece.
I'm already seeing it. I'm already seeing it. All these people trying to pretend this is a Netanyahu problem.
Yeah, just the Netanyahu problem. That's right. So here is Caitlin Johnston's article.
Support for Gaza goes mainstream. Don't let the empire co-opt the movement. Opposition to the slaughter in Gaza appears to be getting more mainstream, which is obviously great. But when political impulses go mainstream, it means there's going to be a massive and concerted effort to funnel public sentiment in a direction that doesn't damage the interests of the empire. They're going to try to blame this all on Netanyahu. They're going to insist that Israel itself is fine, and the only thing that went wrong was a fluke incident in which an aberrational right-wing faction briefly got into power. They're going to try to wash the Western Empire's hands of the mass atrocities it directly facilitated in Gaza. They're going to try to frame Biden as a basically decent politician who found himself trapped in an impossible situation. They're going to keep pretending a two-state solution is right around the corner, and doing everything they can to stall out meaningful change in Palestinian rights while blaming any obstacles to peace on the Palestinian resistance. They're going to pollute the information ecosystem with a deluge of messaging which is all designed to counter the notion that Gaza means the entire status quo needs to be overhauled with regard to Israel-Palestine, with regard to U.S. foreign policy, with regard to the U.S. government itself, and with regard to the Western power structure in general. They're going to say everything they need to say to ensure that everyone understands that the basic status quo in Israel, the United States, and the Western world is working perfectly fine, and this was all just an innocent little oopsie-poopsie caused by a few bad apples. They'll justify, they'll excuse, they'll exonerate, and then they'll distract, moving public attention on to the next big thing, and allowing the amnesia of the daily news churn to wash Gaza from our attention, all while pretending to be on our side. This messaging will need to be fought tooth and claw. We cannot allow them to neuter this political moment with spin and propaganda. We need to make sure their criminality remains front and center of public awareness, and we need to push for the real revolutionary changes that Gaza plainly proves are needed. Let mainstream sentiment turn against the current Israeli regime and bring an end to the butchery in Gaza. But don't let the imperial narrative managers co-opt anything. Don't let them hijack the zeitgeist that's been building. View all words and actions of the Western political media class with aggressive skepticism. And push back forcefully every time they try to push public sentiment in a direction that advantages the empire.
Beautifully said, as always, by Caitlin
Yeah.
Johnston. Now, one example of this that may be hiding in plain sight that our friends at RBN called out immediately was the attempted co-opting of this uncommitted campaign as the primaries roll on. Because don't forget, the uncommitted movement started as the Abandon Biden movement from Muslim and Arab leaders in Michigan and other swing states as a full-on abandonment of the Democratic ticket, not just for the primaries, but for the general as well. Then what happened? Then we started seeing Rashida Tlaib and Michael Moore, right, come in and say, well, yeah, vote uncommitted in the primary, but of course we all got to be there to beat Trump in November. That's an example of co-opting this energy in a way that ultimately serves the empire because they want you to be able to express yourself, get it off your chest that you're furious about Gaza, but still be there for Joe Biden when it really counts. That's one of many examples of what not to fall for.
We showed them.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, one of many examples of what not to fall for. And on the media side of things, and even in conversations with your friends in person or on social media, wherever you have conversations like this, Yeah, do not let them pin this all on one man, Benjamin Netanyahu. Netanyahu is not even, as that last segment showed, he's not even necessarily the most powerful person in this thing, because he has people chirping in his ear saying, you better see this through to the end, or else we are going to basically remove you from power, right? So don't let it become about the personalities. Oh, who's to blame? Who's to blame? You know who's to blame, really? The whole world is to blame for this. The whole world has failed Gaza for decades now. And so that's what I'm talking about. We're talking about revolutionary change and a revolutionary moment. It falls to everybody to see that justice is done for this massacre, that Israel is sanctioned, they become a pariah state, that they have ambassadors expelled from different countries. This has to be a global movement to get justice for what has happened, not just in the past 6 months, but for the past 75 years.
Well, yeah, and the entire attempt to deflect to Netanyahu, you always need to redirect to, hang on, I thought this was the only democracy in the Middle East.
Right.
So don't the Israeli people aren't they responsible for Netanyahu? He's not a dictator. He didn't get there in a coup. You're not suggesting that, right? So didn't the Israeli people sign off on this by putting him in power? Not just he's not like Trump, who you could argue was a political aberration, at least the first time, who came completely out of nowhere. He's around for 20 years. If the Israeli people didn't like what Netanyahu was about, they've had ample opportunity to end his political career. The fact that they've continuously elevated him says something about Israeli society. Netanyahu is not an aberration. He's a natural outcome of a Zionist political project that was always conceived as an ethno-state. On the premise, ironically, as Alon Pape has pointed out, most Israelis don't believe in God, but they all believe he gave them Palestine. It's a biblical claim from somebody like Bill Maher. There's actually another clip that's been going around where he talks about the Bible, the man who made religious. He talks about this having been the seat of King David's kingdom, and that's why Jews belong there.
Yeah. And what about us? What does it say about our society that all of our leaders have signed off on Israel going back all of these decades? What does it say about the progressive movement that we had Bernie Sanders spearheading our little subsection of the American left for a period of time, when it took him way too long to call for suspension of aid? And I still haven't heard him call for a permanent ceasefire. So what does that say about us? Like I said, this is the world's failing.
Right.
This is the world's failing, and no one is off the hook for their complicity in this, including us, including me, who had a podcast for a few years before I gave this issue the airtime that it should have gotten. So I don't let anybody, including myself, off the hook for this, and none of us should. None of us should. But that's the kind of moment that this is. And when you buy into narratives about who is to blame inside Israel, or even if you just say this is a problem of Israel and Israel alone, it's really not. The reason there are aircraft carrier is because we feel we need an aircraft carrier in that region.
Right.
So,
and the only reason for that is because there's oil there.
Exactly. Right. And so this kind of moment has the potential to raise that kind of consciousness. And don't let it be redirected. Don't let it be contained. And don't let it be co-opted. So that was beautifully said by Caitlin Johnston, as always.
Please clap.